It is true.
Horrible news. Our great president is murdered by the Tutsi cockroaches. They tricked him to sign their phony peace agreement. Then they shot his plane from the sky. It is time to clear the brush, good Hutus of Rwanda. We must cut the tall trees. Cut the tall trees now!
The soldiers are here!
Let us go to work, loyal Hutus.
No. Everyone, stay calm and be quiet.
Find these traitors. Let none of them escape.
Everybody out! You two, check the back. Oh. You, go out, find this side.
I better go have a word with them. Hello everyone, this is Speaker Entertainment and we are back again, and here now we have another video for you in our unrated, underappreciated movie review series, and in this edition we'll focus on the immensely powerful and compelling conflict drama Hotel Rwanda. Released on the 22nd of December 2004, it stars John Cheadle, Sophie Okonedo, Joaquin Phoenix, Nick Nolte, and it was directed by Terry George. This setup is a retelling of the harrowing events within the civil war conflict set within Rwanda in 1994. The conflict here was between the Hutu and Tutsi groups within the population. For a short while an uneasy truce had existed between the two groups that was all brought to an end when President Habyarimana was assassinated when his plane was shot down. What shortly followed was the shocking wave of genocide of Tutsi civilians, where roughly around over 800,000 of them were slaughtered. Many Hutu militia were hunting down and killing innocent people within their villages, and during this period we followed the role of Paul Pasesabinga, who is a manager of the Hotel de Milles Collines. In the beginning of the movie we see that he's very proud with his family, he's very cooperative with all of the other various journalists and UN generals within the hotel, but as the genocide continues to increase within the community, Paul initially tries to hide his family away from the conflict, but they eventually find themselves under threat from the Hutu soldiers. Paul has to use all of his wits and finances and negotiation in order to keep them safe within the hotel. As the war continues to escalate, several hundreds of Tutsi people arrive at the hotel seeking refuge and safety. The hotel soon becomes overwhelmed with evacuees as they find themselves left adrift of any support from the UN peacekeeping groups. Over the time, Paul is faced with a desperate challenge of survival as he tries to protect both his family and the refugees to try and hold out in hope that somebody else from the outside will come to their aid. Now, simply put, Hotel Rwanda is an immensely powerful and at times very emotional and heartbreaking film to watch. The film itself is a constant escalation of suspense and tension. As it showcases the brutal killings of innocents, you're constantly fearing for all of the characters, seeing the dangers that they experience throughout the overall story. It really does leave you breathless at times, seeing all of the pain and suffering of the refugees. I can remember watching this film for the first time and I was absolutely frightened for anybody who was going to end up killed throughout this movie. Any narrative involving characters who are constantly surrounded or trapped, fending for their lives, is always going to make for a compelling story, but against this particular backdrop and subject matter, this film comes with a far greater weight and significance. It's made even more difficult to watch as the film provides some disturbing scenes of the atrocities suffered by the population. One scene in particular involves Paul driving out for supplies, and on his way back his van is blocked by a road of dead bodies involving both women and children, and it's scenes like this which are really shocking, but the film never glorifies or sensationalizes the overall violence. There are no out and out villains or easy answers or solutions, and the movie is very unflinching and uncompromising, and it really pulls at your heartstrings as you overall watch the story. At the centre of all of this, we have Don Cheadle in the lead role as Paul, who completely carries the film as we see him pushed to almost breaking point physically and emotionally, trying to save his family as well as others. We see him frustrated and disillusioned as he continues to be left behind on his own from the outside forces, and Don Cheadle conveys all of the emotions that we couldn't possibly imagine in an ordeal like this. It's a magnificent performance from Cheadle, easily the best of his career, and he was rightly deserving of his Oscar nomination. Sophie Okonedo also performs very well as Paul's wife, evoking even more so all of the confusion, pain and torment as she tries to stay and support Paul as well as try to keep her family together. Both her and Cheadle have great scenes and energy together where you truly believe in their resolve and determination, and Sophie as well was rightly rewarded with the Oscar nomination for Best Actress. Nick Nolte is very good in what's actually a far more sensitive, caring character that he's playing as the colonel of the UN peacekeeping party, who is seemingly the only outsider willing to help and support Paul whenever he can. And this is a very different nature in terms of the normal, ambiguous and very fiery characters that Nick Nolte has played throughout his career, and overall I think it's a very good and far more of a sensitive performance. Now admittedly there is somewhat of a waste of certain actors of the likes of Joaquin Phoenix and Jean Reno, who have very small limited roles as both a journalist and a Belgian ambassador, so one could argue that maybe the film could have made far more use of such high quality actors. I also enjoyed Rupert Gregson-Williams' musical score that adds a lot of the emotional impact through many scenes throughout the film. There's one scene in particular where a large scale of refugees arrive at Paul's hotel as all of the white guests are being escorted by the Belgian forces, and they suddenly realise that they're being left in the rain, and we see all of the chorus music played out in the rainfall. It's an absolutely fantastic emotional scene throughout the film. Now there's very little of any criticism that I could really give towards this overall movie, but if there's one element, it's probably the ending, in which when it arrives it seems very abrupt. It's a very hopeful and positive scene, which is good after going through the overall experience of the story, but it's almost like the film just comes to a sudden stop, almost like they reached the limit in terms of the runtime and they couldn't involve any more scenes. And I just think it needed a far more of a longer lasting moment, a far more bigger, more substantial conclusion, a more prominent statement, just to round off the overall story and experience that we've gone through when watching the overall film. And this is probably the only reason why I couldn't give the film an overall 10 out of 10 perfect score. So in that particular case, I would give Hotel Rwanda a 9.7 out of 10. So we go on to the overall release of Hotel Rwanda, and on a budget of 17.5 million, it managed to gross over 33.9 million at the box office. So whilst it made its money back, it was of course in no way, shape or form a box office blockbuster, but to be honest with you, a film such as this with its subject matter and its very bleak and disturbing nature would find it very difficult to appeal to mainstream audiences, as it presents events in a very bleak and realistic way. There's no sentimentality or typical Hollywood heroics involved in here, so many people may have found it too intense to go and watch in the overall theatres. And of course the lack of any A-list star power at the time also worked against it in terms of drawing more mainstream audiences to the overall project. Now the film did garner a huge wave of strong critical acclaim, many critics praising the film, in particularly Don Cheadle's performance, and also the way that it didn't pull its punches or sugarcoat any of the events. It did overall gain 3 Academy Award nominations, both for Best Actor and Best Actress, and also for Best Screenplay as well. But sadly Hotel Rwanda doesn't really get talked about a lot post its overall release. It does draw similar comparisons to Steven Spielberg's Schindler's List, and in many ways I can understand that, because that story as well, you're dealing with a huge genocidal story and a huge struggle of survival and trying to save overall lives. And Hotel Rwanda in many ways is every bit as impactful and important as what Schindler's List was. But sadly it doesn't get as revered or talked about as much as what Schindler's List does. But despite that, Hotel Rwanda still remains a true evocative and powerful movie, an intense reminder of how events like this actually happened, whilst always providing a strong message of how people survived and battled through such horrific events and adversity. So in many ways it's much more of a heartfelt, inspirational story, and I think that's always something that could be credited when talking about certain films overall, and in that sense that's what truly makes Hotel Rwanda a great movie that deserves far more recognition and appreciation than what it garnered upon its initial release. So those are my overall thoughts and feelings and review of Hotel Rwanda. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you have indeed seen the movie, how did it make you feel? Did you feel it provided an accurate depiction of the events within the Rwandan genocide, or do you think it left certain elements out and it only scratched the surface and it could have gone far more deeper in terms of the actual events that actually happened? If you'd like to see me review far more films like this in terms of its subject matter, then drop me a suggestion within the comments, and if I've seen the overall film then I'll provide a commentary on the movie as well. Please also hit and like those subscription and notification buttons so I can provide you with more high quality content like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves, stay safe distances, and I will see you very soon.